Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another episode.
Working on OpenShift
and sometimes
we have a
This is so awesome.
are an open culture that believes
It's actually
in
a big
importance of
piece of the component for your GitOps work.
Everybody has something that they can say.
On top of the Red Hat portfolio.
And we're live. Thank you, everyone, for joining on another episode here on GitOps Guide to the Galaxy. I will be your captain in this journey here. My name is Christian Hernandez. And today I'm happy to be joined, my co-captain here, by Alex Collins here. Alex, can you give a just kind of like a brief introduction of who you are, where you're coming from, and kind of what you do there?
Hi, Christian. So, hi, good morning. My name is Alex. I am a principal software engineer at Intuit, where myself and my team work on effectively the kind of enterprise Kubernetes platform for the company. And amongst the kind of tools and products and capabilities we produce for them, we work on a suite of open source products called Argo. And I'm responsible for Argo Workflows and Argo Events, or anything that kind of deals with data within the Argo world.
Nice, awesome. And I tweeted this out a couple of days ago. I was really excited to have you on and really excited about today's subject because I actually kind of had to hunt Alex down a little bit at KubeCon. I was hunting him down. I was like, hey, Alex, I need to talk to you. I need you to come on my stream. So very, very excited to have Alex come on because I've been wanting to do a stream about Argo workflows, right? So here at Red Hat, we use a lot of Argo. Our enterprise offering, GitOps offering, is based on Argo. So our Argo CD. So we use a lot of Argo CD here, and a lot of our users, a lot of our customers are always asking about workflows. It's like, well, what do you think about workflows? When are you going to do a stream about workflows? So I'm like, you know what? I want to get the message directly from the source here is and get Alex on here. So Alex, what did you what did you think about going back to KubeCon? So like we were both kind of there at KubeCon. It was a little weird coming back right after like being, not having to do the things, doing everything virtually now in person. I thought it was a kind of nice that it was kind of scaled down. There wasn't a lot of people there. It was a kind of great thing to ease into. But I'm kind of curious as what you thought about going back.
It's felt like the first normal thing I've done in a very long time.
Yes,
it felt like. It was the first time getting on a plane in a year, the first time kind of being in an environment with a lot of other people for a time. But it felt really good to kind of be able to spend some time with my colleagues and meet with other people from the Kubernetes community. That was really good. Yeah. It was definitely different. It was definitely different to the previous KubeCon I went in 2019 to that. And it felt quieter, but that was nice. I think I like that.
Yeah. It wasn't. I thought so as well. It didn't feel so crowded, right? It was kind of nice, and I think it was a good first step back into like you said, kind of like it felt like being back normal. So, anyways, again, thank you for coming on, and I always like having the Intuit folks come on. We've had Hendrik on before. We had another Alex on before. There's a lot of Alex's in Intuit. I've noticed I counted at least 3. So I don't know. There's probably more.
Many more than that.
Yeah. I anytime I talk to Hendrik and I say Alex, and he needs to be like, well, which one are you talking about? I'm like, oh yeah. I had to specify. I had to say the whole name. So cool. Yeah. So again, thanks for coming on. I kind of want to talk about a little bit about workflows, right? So today's episode is about workflows. What is workflows, right? Just kind of from a high level, right? There's the Argo CD that sits under the umbrella of Argo project. A lot of people say Argo, and what they mean is Argo CD, not knowing that Argo is actually a project with a lot of I guess sub-projects, a lot of products under it. I don't know what to call it, but yeah, can you talk about like what is Argo Workflows?
Yeah, it's. I mean, context matters. In workflow circle, when people say Argo, they mean Argo Workflows. They don't mean
Yes.
Argo CD. Conversely, it gets confusing when you're trying to talk about both of them. People are confusing. So there are basically 4 projects inside Argo. Two big ones, which are Argo CD and Argo Workflows, and they each have like a little sibling, like a younger brother or a sister. And for Argo CD, that younger sibling is Argo Rollouts, and for Argo Workflows, it's Argo Events. And they tend to complement each other. The main commonality between Argo Workflows and Argo CD is they're both kind of very fundamentally cloud native. So everything, understands Kubernetes, knows that it's running on Kubernetes, and kind of leans and leverages all the capabilities that provides. So things like the ability to declaratively specify resources, or the RBAC model, or auto scaling capabilities. And so Argo CD and Argo Rollouts kind of focus on application delivery. I won't talk too much about that because obviously people can go and look at listen to other streams, I'm guessing, if they want to learn about that. I'll talk about workflows. So Kubernetes doesn't have a system built into it that enables you to run a process that runs to termination. The default model is that you run a number of pods on Kubernetes, and they can be killed at any point. It's fine. Kubernetes makes one promise, and it will kill your pod at some point. That's the promise it makes. And it will give you no warning of that, which is great for like a web application, a stateless web application. But a workflow is typically, they can be a lot longer running. You typically want the pods within your workflows, the processes within your workflows to run to completion. And if they take an hour to run, then you don't necessarily want Kubernetes to kill them during that procedure. And they're not typically irreplaceable, but they do tend to run for a specific period of time. So that's kind of really one of the things that workflows brings to the table, is the ability to kind of run short-lived controlled processes there. The other thing that workflows does is, because it leans on how Kubernetes does scaling, it can scale out to very large workflows. Very large workflows. And just to kind of step back in the conversation a bit, just to define what a workflow is. I mean, a workflow is just defined as a series of processes that may or may not run on a schedule. So Kubernetes provides like built-in job, but it's very simple. It can only run one pod, and a workflow typically needs to be much more complicated. Often you'll have a workflow where you have a first step, which goes and figure out what actual work needs to be done, and then it'll fan out, running one process for each of those pieces of work, and then maybe it'll fan back in later on to do it. That's kind of what a workflow is. And Argo Workflows allows you to do that, but you don't need to use kind of any scheduling system, because you can use this. You can just install it straight in your clusters. There's no kind of special setup for it. It's very easy to get started compared to other similar pieces of software. And it can do kind of it's designed, and it's also tuned and optimized to do very large scale workflows. And people today are running workflows with 20,000, 30,000 individual steps within those workflows. And I've heard people talking about 100,000 steps. And actually, Kubernetes itself can only do 300,000 steps, like by design. So we're kind of approaching the limits of what Kubernetes can do in terms of workflow execution. So we provide that, so you can specify your workflow as a Kubernetes custom resource, and when it executes, then you can use all the Kubernetes APIs to interact with it. All those standard APIs that are very similar to ones used for kind of pods and deployments. And so you can review the logs of the different steps. And because Workflows is kind of a general workflow execution engine, it is pretty popular for building platforms on top of. So if you need to build some kind of batch processing platform on Kubernetes, something that's running, tasks, and you want to have an API and say, please run these tasks, and I want you to run n of them, then Workflows works really well for that. And so it's pretty popular. It's very popular inside the machine learning community. So Kubeflow Pipelines uses Argo Workflows as its workflow execution system. And I've spoken to quite a few different people about how they use it. And in Intuit, it's the execution component of our batch processing platform and of our machine learning platform, where it's used to perform kind of model training and execution for it. And it kind of provides other kind of standard workflow execution features, like the ability to schedule a workflow to run a particular time or a particular schedule, and then kind of webhooks and endpoints that allow you to do that as well. So that's Workflows in a nutshell, but not much of a nutshell, a very large nutshell.
Yeah, very big nut. Yes. Yeah. Well, it sounds. Well, I think you hit a very interesting point here, right? Is like their Kubernetes itself does have effectively is what you were describing as a batch system, right? Like it's like you run a job, but it's very simplistic, right? You either run a job. If you need it to run at regular intervals, you have like the cron job, right? Which is like you have that, but it's super simplistic because although it has retries, it's very simplistic in a retry because it's either like it'll retry when it fails, right? You can set it up to say, hey, when it fails, retry, but like if you're some things are more complex than that, right? Sometimes I want to retry even if it succeeds. Like there's certain conditions and things. So what you're effectively saying, what Workflows is putting like an intelligence around running things that need to run in batch, right? And things that not long-lived containers, something like you mentioned, like a web server, right? Or maybe like a stateful application or something like that has a long-lived lifetime. No, I need something done, and I need to do at scale, and I need some intelligence built around that, right? And so so that's really cool. And I think one of the things I should let people know is it's funny that I would say Argo CD gets a lot of love, right? Like there's a lot of stuff around Argo CD. But if you look at it, Argo Workflows has more stars on it on GitHub. So there's, and like if it's not a competition or anything, but it's it's a lot of people are using our workflows, and a lot of especially our users at Red Hat are starting to ask about workflows. So it seems that workflows came about inside. Did the idea come at Intuit, or was it part of the part of the acquisition, part of the software from the acquisition from Applatix, I think it was, right?
That's right. Yeah. It was part of their products that they were developing at the time. So I guess that's probably about 3 years ago. I would say 2 to 3 years ago. I'd have to look at the GitHub history to find out.
Yeah.
And actually,
right.
I think Workflows predates Argo CD. In fact.
Okay. So there you had a head start with the stars. So
yeah.
So
I don't understand why it has more stars than Argo CD. Because Argo CD has a lot more noise around it, and a lot, other metrics show it's very popular. So it's kind of interesting that has more stars. I think it comes down to administrator versus end user.
Yes. Yeah.
I think with you as an administrator of Argo, as a user of Argo CD, you don't necessarily ever need to go to the Argo CD repository because your company will tell you how to use it with Argo Workflows. You might need to do that, so we have more of that information.
Gotcha. What's really interesting, and I'd like to hear kind of like the usage of workflows inside Intuit and I think you alluded to a little bit, right? Like a lot of people doing like batch work, a lot of doing like AI ML work, right? Like when they have to do something, a lot of batch work at scale. It sounds like you guys at Intuit are doing a lot of that in AI, in machine learning and artificial intelligence work at Intuit. But what's interesting is that I find a lot of end users that I speak to that are using workflows are using it almost as a pipeline, as a CI system, right? A lot of people are using it as a CI. Are you guys using it internally as a CI system as well, or is that not the intended use, right?
No, we basically it is installed like by default in Intuit clusters, so it's just there and running. And so if you want to run a workflow, you can just run one the same way you can just run a deployment. It's there's no setup for you to do that. So people use it for all sorts of different all sorts of different things. So it could well be that the people are using it for CI/CD. It's kind of an interesting. I always think it's quite interesting. We don't ever really target CI/CD use cases, or more CI, obviously. But people, that is a popular use case for workflows. Triggering a build off that. That's fine. I think it's quite hard to build a generic workflow engine without making it work quite well for CI.
Yeah. Good. Good. That's a very good point, right? Like you inadvertently create something that, right? Like if you're going to do a workflow, inadvertently people will say, "Hey, this might be a good CI system," because And it's always interesting when you build something and like people start using it for like other things. You're like, oh, interesting. I never thought about that, but yeah, I guess you could use it for something like that. So the CI, so a lot of people I've talked to using it for CI for at least for testing like something like a feature branch, right? Like they can set up something really quick to test a feature branch using workflows, and I think that's really cool. So the some of the work that you guys done inside it sounds like a lot of the projects that came up inside Intuit with the Argo project are basically just out of necessity, right? Like some of the things is like, hey, we need something that does something, and Kubernetes isn't providing it now. Let's just build on top of that.
Yeah, I think that's very similar. Yeah.
Cool. So I think in case you guys, I'm gonna drop some links in the chat here. In case you guys want to read more about workflows, right? There's a link there. You can definitely go to the read the docs. There's great video there, right? By the way, I think Alex, you did that video, so you can see that there as well. Some good things there. So I think if anyone has any questions, by the way, go ahead. Feel free to drop it in the chat. I'll feed it through. But I think Alex, hopefully, let's cross our fingers with the demo gods here. I think Alex is going to show us a little bit about kind of like a use case you would use, or kind of just show what Argo Workflows looks like, or what it can do. Let's cross our fingers here. Demo gods. Hopefully it'll be on our
Do I need
side.
to enable my screen? Oh, it's already running. Cool.
There it goes.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to avoid the CLI. I'm just going to stick with the user interface. And actually, you can go and check this out yourself. I'll share the URL here in the chat. Can I do that?
Oh yeah, the test system. There you go.
This is the public test system. So hang on, what's happening here is I'm finding myself in something else that I don't want. So this is kind of like our demo system, workflows.apps.argoproj.io. And this is kind of there to showcase some of the user interface features of it. And I'm just going to go through a couple of features here to kind of talk a little bit about them. So this is the main page. This is the page that most people will spend their time in here. And this page basically allows me to have a little look at kind of running and completed workflows. So I can kind of just change the filters here, and I'll see some recent workflows. And you can see that there's a calendar workflow running there, and that's running on a regular basis. So we have, like, as we talked about workflows, we have, as a job has like a cron job, we have a cron workflow, which allows you to specify a workflow that runs on a period of time. So we've got one here running this particular template every 5 minutes. So you can see that provides the information there about that, when it's going to run. And inside that template, I think we will find that it specifies a particular template to run afterwards called coin flip. And basically this template is a template that will do a flip of coin. That'll run every 5 schedule. So if we have a little look at the templates here, we can have a little look at the coin flip template here. I'm just going to kind of get straight to the spec. Okay, let's go straight to the spec. So basically inside a workflow, you'll specify a series of templates, and the templates will execute in order. And in this example, we've basically got a template that will flip a coin, step 1. Then step 2 is conditional. So if the output of step 1 was heads, then it'll run that one, otherwise it'll run tails. So basically, this is a simulation for running a coin flip. Then further down in this, we have a kind of a script here that shows you what's actually going to flip the coin. So I'm basically specifying a script here, a Python script that's executed. And that imports the random library, and then it just flips a coin and prints out the result of that.
Yeah.
And then also in here, I've got some other ones here demonstrating some kind of other basic capabilities here. So this one here, this is the tails one, and this just prints to the console it was tails. Okay. Now we're back, and I should be able to see an example of this one. If it's there, let's try again. Sorry. There we go. There we go. So previous example is run there, and you can see here I've just gone through, and this is kind of a visual representation of that particular workflow, showing that it's flipped a coin, and then as a result of it being heads, it's from the head step there, and then I can click on the heads. I hope this works. This was broken earlier today. Fingers crossed. It should. Here we go. It's the logs. This is what it's looking. There you go. You can see in the log file it's printed out. It was heads. So kind of comparing it to a kind of cron job and a job, you've got a user interface here that makes it kind of really easy to investigate what's going on with your workflow. And I think maybe you just talking about the CICD use case, kind of a really common thing that people need to do is they need to actually go into their system. They don't tend to worry too much about when things have been successful, but what is typically a lot more interesting and is when something has been unsuccessful, which doesn't appear to be the case today. It allows you to go into that same user interface. When you click down into that particular workflow, then problems with it are highlighted in red, and it's just very easy to get in there as well. So what I was going to do is I'm just going to submit a new workflow here. And I'm going to just copy and paste it from this document I have here. So being a kind of Kubernetes object that appears in the Kubernetes API, obviously my workflows get a name and they run in a namespace. And so that namespace allows me to isolate different teams, and each different team or user can have a different namespace. I tend to run under a specific service account, running their permissions. And this one's got some parameters here. So the parameter I've got here is it's got a message, and the value is hello Argo. That's going to print out hello Argo. And then I've got a template here that'll take that input, that parameterized input. So in this example, that parameter is a message, but that could be a Git branch, or it could be pretty much anything else. And then it's going to run this container here, and that's going to print that message out onto the console. And there's some kind of additional configuration about TTLs and so forth. So let's just create that. Okay, so there it goes. Now you can see it in this graph again. This is a very simple one. This is a single node here, so it's not got very many many parts to it. Now, do I have I'm just trying to think if I've got an example of a one that's got many nodes on it. Let me have a little look here. No. So you go, you see that ran to completion, and it was just ran pretty quickly to completion. Let me open this up. So I'm just going to bring up a couple of examples, see if I can pop them using these tabs. Yeah. There we go. So this is just kind of a pretty common example of a workflow. It starts out with a step. That map step going to get some data from a database, splits it up, and sends it elsewhere. So that's one example. This is a slightly larger example. This came from a community member. I should attribute. So this is kind of the kind of thing you can do. So, I can do a big fan out, and they can have a lot of steps there. So you can see there's probably about 20 steps across by about 40 steps down. So they're probably running about, 2,000 pods in that one. And then we can have a look at this one here. There we go. That's an even larger one. I can't even begin to guess how many that's running. So that's quite nice. About scale. Yeah, it's quite pleasurable to see that. We do put a lot of effort into that. So there's that aspect of kind of running them. You can also kind of create a thing called a binding that allows you to trigger a workflow based on a message. And I'm hoping we'll have some examples here. Yes, we do have loads of examples here. So in this example, this one has been triggered by a GitHub event. So something's happened in GitHub. Maybe it's a pull request or a new issue or something like that. We have a very busy repository, I think. Otherwise, we wouldn't see this. And we can see that this is now running a container. And then I don't know what it will do. Oh, it's just going to print out a message. So let's see if that appears in the logs. Here we go. And you can see that it's basically printed out and the message that
Oh,
comes from
the
GitHub
payload
here.
looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, so the kind of raw payload. Oh, hang on. What happened there is I
Oh, you
I
got
actually jumped as I clicked, it ran a new workflow. That's the calendar one. I wanted to have a look at the GitHub one.
Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Yeah, so this one's failed, but that's fine. We can just have a little look, and it should show information about that. If it doesn't do that, then I can kind of go in here and investigate here. Tell me why it failed. So it tells me this pod ran for too long. So pods on this particular cluster have to run within a minute or 30 seconds maybe, otherwise they get terminated. That's to kind of prevent any particular workflow consuming too many resources.
You
so
don't want anyone Bitcoin mining, right, in your workflow, right?
That's a bit of a sore. I mean, that's a bit of a sore point for us. It's a bit of a sore point.
Yeah.
I could talk more over that over a beer, but yeah, we did find out about. We weren't actually informed about this, and the security company just didn't speak to us about it at all beforehand. They just published that people were mining Monero on unsecured workflow instances. Actually, they were also at the same time doing it on GitHub Actions. So GitHub Actions had people doing Monero mining.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, as well.
Yeah, because basically the people have been misconfiguring the user interfaces and leaving the kind of like corporate installation of Kubernetes open to the internet, and people were going down there finding them. Yeah, so don't allow ingress from the internet is probably a lesson to be learned.
Yes, that's the lesson there. Exactly.
Yeah. We've changed that now, so you actually have to make more effort now to misconfigure it in that way.
Oh, yeah.
You
don't make it too easy. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to. We've made it hard to make a mistake, which we made it harder to make a mistake. But people can still, you can open your Kubernetes API to the internet if you want to. Yeah. We can never properly prevent you doing it. So I talked a little bit about this. Just we have some other areas in this application here as well. So this is the Argo Events that I talked about here. So this is kind of a new visual representation that's been in the user interface for about 6 months now. This just allows you to see your executions here of your code. So this one kind of just shows you which is like a cron job, and that's triggering a couple of thing in here, and you can see that one of the outcomes of that is it's running a workflow every 30 seconds or whatever it is. I'm not exactly sure. And we have a few other areas in the product as well around things like an archive and reporting. Did I want to show you anything else around the user interface? So that's kind of it. If you want to try out workflows, you can go to our GitHub repository, and we have a quick start guide there. And the quick start guide will install in a test namespace for your Argo Workflows controller, and which actually runs the workflows and the user interface, and also a piece of software called Minio, which allows you to kind of pretend you're interacting with S3, which is kind of a useful component to have installed.
Especially when you're testing, right? When you're trying to figure out your
really
workflows.
Useful. Yeah, great piece of software. One of the kind of like common things that people do with workflows is one step in the workflow will download a kind of pretty large file from S3, your GCP, in the gigabyte range, and then perform some processing before uploading that back. So that's kind of one of the nice features about it. It makes it really easy to get that data out of those systems and then perform processing on it.
Yeah, I actually went through some of those examples, and it's actually pretty cool. Some of the things that you can do with workflows, especially the DAG. You know how like people build those trees with the dependencies, right? So like especially if you have workflows depending on other workflows that depend on other workflows, right? Like you have A depends on B, B depends on B depends on A, C depends on both A and B, right? And you can kind of have like this logic tree that you built out. Which is definitely, I put the link in the chat for Argo Workflows. Definitely check that out. It's actually really easy to get started, especially for testing purposes. You can just spin up a kind cluster locally and test that out. There's a lot of really cool features, really neat features. What I actually really, so you mentioned earlier about how like events is kind of like a sibling, right, or something that came out of a necessity that you found in workflows. Can you talk a little bit more about what events does for you with respect to workflows, right? So like what is that problem that was being solved? events?
Yeah, so kind of running a workflow is kind of half the problem for most users. The other half is deciding when to run it and what to run it with. And so people need options to trigger workflows to run under certain circumstances. And kind of Argo Events provides a number of different ways to do that and kind of logical conditions that allow you to determine when that should happen. So the example here I've shown as a calendar, but another kind of common example would be to trigger it from a message that comes through Kafka, but maybe not every message that comes through Kafka. So you can create in Argo Events a thing called an event source that listens to a particular Kafka topic and then filters those out before starting the workflow. And I was speaking to people from Pulsar and from Kafka recently actually about this, and there's just a very large kind of ecosystem of we call them event sources, but I think more commonly they're called connectors that allow you to connect your software to another bit of software. And there's kind of a big market for kind of moving data from one kind of event queue to another kind of system, and so Argo Events kind of can sit in front of Argo Workflows and provide you those various options. And it's interestingly pretty popular with infrastructure automation. So that's like a kind of a hidden use case that Argo Workflows allows you to do. If you're doing automation on your clusters and you want to perform various bits of upgrades, actually Argo Workflows works really well with that. Actually can work extremely well with Argo CD. Actually, combine those two together. Use Argo CD to determine which clusters the things run on, and use Argo Workflows to define the actual job that needs to be done on those ones. Argo Events has gained a lot of popularity over the last year as well. It's not hugely popular like Argo Workflows, but it's getting a good amount of momentum, I think. We're seeing some great new features, such as the addition of support of Redis streams, which is pretty new as well, which we didn't have that before. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. What also I think what's really cool about events is kind of you guys kind of have like a generic. I want to say, for a lack of a better term, kind of like an event listener, or like kind of like an endpoint, right? Where I guess the most common use case is what they call Slack ops, right? Where it's like you can send a message, right? Do a / something, and it'll trigger some sort of event, right? And you have that generic event listener sort of thing with Argo Events, right? So
we do. Yeah.
So it's really it's actually pretty cool. And I think a lot of, again, I go back to that CI use case where it's like, well, how do I trigger a CI? It's like, well, you can use events to trigger a workflow that does kind of like your CI build system. Again, kind of like a weird. People are using the software kind of like, hey, I never thought that they would be using it that way, but I've heard a lot of people using it kind of like a webhook endpoint, or like an event endpoint, when someone makes, let's just say, a commit to a particular branch, for instance, right? It can be that endpoint can be set up to trigger a workflow, and so I think I think that's kind of like a cool use case, right? Like for events, it's kind of like a generic wrapper around all your, I guess, endpoints for webhooks, right? Because from what I read, I see in the doc, you can set up multiple endpoints depending on what you need it to do.
Yeah, you can do it. Yeah, I'm always right. I talk a bit about these kind of broad categories of what people use it for, these bits of software for, but I actually often get surprised. You find out that people are using it for something we didn't know. So, Workflows is being used at CERN for orchestration of some of their kind of particle physics experimentation. I've spoken to quite a few companies doing kind of medical analysis, and doing machine learning around kind of like, I don't know what it's called. Is it called med tech? I don't know what the term is for it.
Oh, yeah. MedTech. Yeah. If it isn't, we'll coin that term. There you go.
We'll do it, and we'll immediately copyright it. So like MedTech companies, I speak to a lot of people doing that. Plenty of people from CICD as well. People we speak to about that. Image processing. People doing image processing jobs.
Okay.
Yeah. People. Doing all sorts of machine learning. Everybody who's building the machine learning platform is using it. I think we always have interest. People always come along with new demos. Oh, so here's one I had no idea that people were using it for. Litmus Chaos, which is a chaos testing framework.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that.
They use it to basically schedule the chaos tests within the framework. And if I sat down for a week and spent my entire week just trying to write down the kind of things you could use workflows for, I would have never have guessed that. That wouldn't have.
Yeah.
That
would have been something. Yeah.
It would have just completely caught me by surprise. We run a monthly community meeting, third Wednesday, if you want to put it in your calendar. And the kind of cool thing about that is people come along and demo their kind of products, and it's kind of the most popular thing. It's kind of almost what makes that community meeting. People come along and they get to see what other people are doing.
Yeah.
And so maybe not necessarily demo their products, but kind of show their use case and show how Argo helps them resolve that. And that's always super interesting.
Like a show and tell, right? Almost. It's like, hey, look the kind of cool thing I'm doing with these products.
Yeah. It's always fascinating. We always have loads of questions about it.
Yeah, and it's always really what I find interesting about just like the Argo project in general is that the data science community has really latched on to Argo project, like the software a lot, because I've seen a lot around Argo CD and workflows when it comes to data science, right? And so I think it's always interesting to see those use cases as well, because I'm like really far removed, right? I'm more on the application deployment aspect of it, using it for like application deployment. Using Argo CD for GitOps and application deployment maybe for workflows. But I never see like that side of it, right? It's always interesting to see the what other people that aren't necessarily doing software delivery, because there's a ton of use cases, right? Especially for another thing I could think of is like I would think like JPL would use this for also their machine learning type of thing, right? Or like someone in that like aerospace industry would definitely can use something like that.
So like you can go and look at our users file, but there's quite a few automotive manufacturers in there, car companies inside that file, which is kind of interesting, but it's kind of hard to know what they're using it for. I'm sure that Argo Workflows is probably not the execution engine for self-driving cars. I hope it's not.
Yeah. I hope it's
it would be. If you've got a Kubernetes cluster running inside your electric car, maybe people do. I don't know.
Yeah. We don't know that, right? I guess it's possible, right? Tons of
if it's not being done, maybe we should be doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we would like to hear it, by the way. So if you're watching this,
I'd love to hear that. Yeah,
we would love to hear those use cases, right? So I just dropped down. If you can see down in the screen, Argo Workflows. That's the GitHub page. So if you want to check out the upstream, what's going on there, what's coming up next. And speaking of what's coming up next, so are there anything that's coming in workflows that you guys kind of like that you've been working on for a while and then you're about to release, maybe something you're excited about?
So we've just released version 2.2. I'm trying to remember what we have in that. Oh, so that introduces a new capability called a HTTP template. It's in this blog somewhere. 2020. I mean, this is our blog, and you can come in and find version 3.2. No, I can't find it. We'll have to come back to that another time. So that's going to have the HTTP template, which is basically a way of much more kind of much more inexpensive way of doing particularly HTTP requests inside your workflow. I kind of think that there are kind of three things I'm actually really excited about in our kind of in the future for us. The first one is we've just a lot of our users love Python, but we haven't kind of given them the best experience yet. They don't love YAML, I wouldn't say. So we are now we had a community maintained Python SDK, but what we've now done is bring that kind of client library and the Java client library into the main code base. So those will all going to be updated and published automatically. So that would be a better experience for them. And there's been a new joiner in Argo Labs called Hera Workflows. So people who want to write workflows in Python, there were two ways of doing it, which one was to use Kubeflow pipelines. And then they have a transpiler that transpiles Kubeflow pipelines into workflows. Then there is Cooler project, which is kind of a Python SDK that transpiles from Python into the intention is to transpile into Airflow and Argo Workflows and other kind of systems. And now there's a new one called Hera, which I think is really nice. It's a really nice kind of syntax. It's very very directed at kind of like common use cases, and I like it. I think it's nice and simple to use. That's coming up pretty soon.
Okay.
After that, the big feature I think kind of a lot of people are waiting for, the most popular feature is going to be multi-cluster workflows. I think multi-cluster in general is a big topic. And so the idea of a multi-cluster workflow is one workflow where the steps within the workflow run in different clusters and different namespaces. And that has loads of kind of interesting use cases, such as, my workflow is a full end-to-end deployment because the start of the workflow builds my application, tests it, then it gates it with an approval step. I click on approve. And then the next step of that workflow, rather than running in that kind of pre-production cluster, now runs in the production cluster, installing the application. So I think that's going to be really neat for that kind of use case. But also the same kind of thing with machine learning. The first part of builds my model, and then maybe there's a gate step in the middle of it, an approval step, and then it goes into another cluster and installs that model in that cluster. I think that would be, that's just a very popular feature.
Yeah.
And a feature I don't know, we're spending some hack time on this feature's plugin system, which is, I feel like it's one of those features that people don't ask for, but could potentially turn out to be pretty game changing for people because it opens up loads of new use cases for it. And the idea of a plugin is you as a user just write a Python script, and then there are various places in the workflow lifecycle that you can tap into to, do things like, create notifications as a result of a workflow completing, which is a pretty common use case. But also more than that, write your own types of template. So if you wanted a workflow that didn't just execute pods, but sent a Slack message or started a Tecton CD job or, ran some Spark EMR stuff. But that was just, it's just part of your workflow. You don't have to do any kind of translation. That's something we're kind of developing as a proof of, I would say it's kind of alpha-y. I was about to say proof of concept. I think it's beyond proof of concept, but probably not a kind of beta stage. And we demoed this. We demoed this, and the thing I like about this is, whenever I speak to somebody about it, they tell me, "Oh, I could do this, or I could solve that problem like this." I demoed it to my VP earlier this week. We did a little demo session, and he came up with a great idea that I hadn't even thought of. And so that was a really great aha moment. I was like, "Oh, we could do that. We don't need to do this. This could be super simple." Though the downside possibly is that occasionally I'm seeing features that if we had a plugin framework at the time, we wouldn't have built those features. And I think that'll be neat for users because they will be able to write their own templates, their own plugins, build in features and capabilities, but they don't need to wait for a software release for that. They can just do it themselves, today if they want to, and have it done. Have it done in production tomorrow. So loads of things to be excited about.
Plugins.
And you know what I'm most excited about, Christian? Do you know what I'm most excited? I'm most excited about ArgoCon.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly it, right? And so for those who don't know, is ArgoCon is coming. So let me get you that link because registrations are still open. ArgoCon is happening December 8th, right? I'll be there, right? I actually have a presentation there, so shameless plug. Alex, you'll be there. I don't know if you have a presentation, but if you do, check that out. We do have a question. We do have a question in the chat though here about workflows. So it says, Stefan says, I noticed that Argo Workflows doesn't support processing multiple resources in one file, i.e. kubeapply-f manifest file. Is that something you've seen a workaround for, to be more specific, within the manifest field in a workflow template?
Interesting. Yeah. So I think probably the short answer is we don't really cater for that. I think he's probably talking about the CLI. The CLI tends to focus on a single workflow at a time and operate on a single one, so it's kind of hard to like submit 2 workflows from it. But often, you can use kubectl to do this. So kubectl create, and if you give it a file, it'll create those workflows for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah. So I guess you can try to server side apply that. I'm not sure. Or do it like an item list. I don't know if you've Stefan, who asked the question, I don't know if you tried an item list or if you just tried the standard YAML triple dash, right, sort of thing. So I would try either a server side or an item list. I think that would be good too. So here, did I drop the ArgoCon? Yes, I did. Yeah. So it's like where they're trying to use customize to try to do some of that. So interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. You should be able to do that. I mean, we use customize ourselves for doing a lot of stuff. And one thing we do is kind of GitOps workflows as well.
Oh,
so that should be possible. Obviously,
right,
you can
cool.
come and find us in our Argo Slack if you want to talk more about that.
Yeah. So if also there was a link dropped for the latest release here of Argo Workflows. Is the best place to talk about or to have questions about Argo or get involved? Is that in the CNCF Slack or
yeah? We have an Argo Workflows channel, and people are pretty helpful in that. You can jump on there and just ask questions. People usually kind of help you out, or check out the docs as well, of course.
Yeah, or an issue. There is a Slack channel, Slack account for the CNCF. I think it's cncf.slack.com. I think it is. Yes, it is. I just looked it up. So let me put that. So here is all the. It's like a generic, I guess, Slack for everyone, right? For everyone who is in the CNCF and has a project there. I dropped the link in the chat. There is Argo channels there there's channels. I'm looking at it now for workflows, for Argo CD. There's an ArgoCon channel, by the way. So if you're interested about our ArgoCon, there's one in there as well. So I'm active on there. I think a lot of the stuff I bug a lot of the Alexes from Intuit there. So as well,
Alexes. Yeah.
Yeah, many Alexes. It's one of you many here. So so in the closing minutes here, looks like we have about 5 minutes left here until the top of the hour. I don't know if you guys have any more questions out there to round this out. I do have a other than ArgoCon that we just mentioned. Again, remember that's December 8th. I am running a survey, so the survey, if I can get my Bitly link. I'm running a survey about how you're see here, linked in the chat. Yes, so the survey is linked in the chat, as you see there. We've been doing the show for a little over a year, almost 2 years now. This is the second. In December, we're going to take our second winter break that we had. So it's about 2 years. We've done a lot of things. So we want to check if you want to check it out. What you like, what you don't like about the show. If you want it to be different, same. I'm the type of person, I don't know about you, Alex. I guess working in software is like, give me all the feedback you have, even the nasty feedback. Like, don't be afraid about being too mean. Like, I'll filter that out in my head because I want to hear like actually what you think, because a lot of the times frustration can be good, right? So it's I look at it as like, oh, okay, this is feedback, this is a point of frustration. So again, go ahead, fill that survey out. I want to see how we're doing and what kind of shows you guys want here. See here, doing a check here in the chat. There's no more questions coming down here. So yeah, so Alex, where I don't know if you have anything to plug. I don't know if you have if you want people to follow you on Twitter. I don't know if you have a Twitter account, or if you just want people to just join the community. Let us know.
Yeah.
Where we can find you.
I think some of the same stuff you said. It's great to kind of get feedback from people. If you have comments or feedbacks or bugs, it's kind of great to hear about that sooner rather than later. I will be speaking at ArgoCon. I'll be doing like a maintainers update rather than a presentation. So I'll be able to give you an update on that as well.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's pretty cool. The maintainers update's always really cool. So I'll look forward to that. I'll probably be attending that. So so here, yes. So follow me on Twitter, right? So that's my Twitter handle is somewhere on the screen. It's kind of hard to see because it's like mirrored on my site. So my I guess it would be that side. All right. Yes, exactly. Follow me on Twitter. Make sure to like and subscribe, right? So just kind of like all influencers are saying, click the subscribe button. Make sure you click that. It'll help us out a lot. So I think with that, next week is there's a show every other week. So I guess the fact that we're on holiday here in the US worked out for me because we don't have a show that anyways. But just everyone who's in the US have a good holiday. Good Thanksgiving here. So with that, I think we're good here. So as I always say, right, unless it's in Git, it's only a rumor. So I like to close out with that little saying. And so everyone, cheers. Thank you, Alex, for coming. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Christian.